What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. So as we return to our series on how to kill superheroes, in today's video, we're going to be focusing on the most powerful member of the Lantern Corps, and probably one of the most powerful heroes, at least in general, in the DC universe, the White Lantern, Kyle Rayner. Now, the reason why we're focusing on Kyle Rayner here is that he has possessed the White Lantern ring the longest and is the most adept in how to use it. Now, one of the kickers with the White Lantern rings is that when someone's given one, they basically know how to use it. But Kyle Rayner is kind of like the progenitor of it all. I mean, he's really kind of like the main guy when it comes to the White Lantern mythos, and so it seemed right that if we were going to talk about killing a White Lantern, we would pick Kyle Rayner, plus he's the most popular. So in order to figure out how to kill one of these White Lanterns, or kill Kyle Rayner anyway, we have to know what it is that they're capable of doing. So the first thing here is that as a White Lantern, Kyle Rayner basically possesses all the powers of the emotional spectrum, meaning that he can create constructs powered by will like the Green Lanterns, or fear like the Yellow Lanterns. He can emit poisonous blood like the Red Lanterns. He can heal injuries like the Blue Lanterns. He can steal the identities of those he's defeated like Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern. He can force people to feel love like the Star Sapphires, and he can teleport like the Indigo Lanterns. Now, in addition to this, he also has powers unto himself, meaning that he has the ability to create light constructs made of white energy. He can phase through solid objects. He can generate force fields. He can create energy blasts. He can make himself invisible. He's capable of healing. He can fly at super speeds, and he can manipulate reality. So yeah, he's really powerful. Now, it's also important to note that the power of the White Lanterns increases as the wearer of the Lantern Ring embraces the value of life, and Kyle Rayner at one time even possessed the life equation within the power ring after passing through the Source Wall, which is like this barrier that separates dimensions within the DC universe. Now, the life equation is essentially a mathematical equation proving the value of life, as well as the sum of all the lights in the emotional spectrum, which contains all the lights of the various colored power rings. However, realizing that the life equation made him too powerful, Kyle Rayner actually split the White Lantern ring into 7 individual wings in Green Lantern New Guardians number 40. And much like the Infinity Gauntlet, I guess, after the events of the main Infinity Gauntlet story, the rings could be brought together to create, or I guess to restore the power of the life equation if the need was dire enough. And so with all that in mind, the question that we have to ask here is, how do you kill a being whose power, for all intents and purposes, really borderlines or mirrors the power of God? Well, the first thing we have to keep in mind is that Kyle Rayner's powers are not inherent to him, but they are derived from the White Power Ring. And so it stands to reason that the easiest way to defeat a White Lantern is to essentially neutralize his power ring. Now, one way to achieve this is to drain the ring of its power, which we have seen happen at various times throughout the ring's history in DC Comics. In Green Lantern number 133, under the writing of Marv Wolfman, a villain named Dr. Polaris invents a device that he calls a power absorber, which allows him to claim the power ring's energy for himself. Later, in Jeff Johns' run of the Green Lantern, we saw a Manhunter robot able to accomplish the exact same thing. Black Hand, who is one of the Green Lantern's primary villains, also possesses a device that allows him to drain the rings of their power. Now, while these examples all involve a Green Lantern ring instead of a White Lantern ring, it isn't unreasonable to assume that a White Lantern ring could be drained of its energy in much the same way. And once this is accomplished, Kyle Rayner would be just another human being and would be extremely vulnerable to an attack. Now, another option for neutralizing the ring's power is to interfere with the ring wearer's ability to control it by disrupting their focus through psychic, telepathic, or any sort of attack that affects their concentration. Now, this happened to Kyle Rayner during the Identity Crisis event when Deathstroke was able to break his concentration, but at the same time, again, he was also wearing a Green Lantern power ring, which requires exceptional willpower to operate. This may prove to be more difficult with Kyle being a White Lantern, since he's now able to exercise almost total control over each of the emotions in the emotional spectrum, which is what drew the various colored rings to him in the first place. However, while this would take someone with a significant amount of telepathic ability, it would be theoretically possible to shut off Kyle's mind's ability to control the power ring and render him effectively powerless. Of course, if all this fails, there does exist the option to simply destroy the power ring or the power battery required to recharge it. It's important to note here, though, that the destructibility of power rings has been pretty inconsistent throughout the history of DC Comics, but it looks that following the return of Hal Jordan in Green Lantern Rebirth, that the rings are not not indestructible. This is evidenced by Sinestro claiming that he's broken rings before trying to get too much power out of them. And so this at least indicates that the rings can be destroyed. Now, while certain rings can be destroyed by other colored rings, like the Black Lantern rings being destroyed by White Lantern rings, Red Lantern rings being destroyed by Blue Lantern rings, we don't know of any ring capable of destroying a White Lantern ring. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. But the problem that it presents is that we simply just don't know how to do it. Now, one characteristic of the power ring that needs to be mentioned is that the power is not unlimited. And as the ring's wielder uses the ring, it will run out of energy and will need to be recharged. This is accomplished through a device known as a power battery. Now, if someone was able to destroy the power battery or even keep Kyle from accessing and recharging his ring, eventually he would simply run out of power and then he could just be defeated that way. And so in truth, when it comes to the power that Kyle Rayner possesses, as far as I can tell, the only surefire way of being able to kill him as the White Lantern is to basically ensure that he doesn't have the ability to charge his own ring. The problem with this is that if he does charge his ring and it's at 100% capacity or it's at maximum capacity, the power that he has allows him to approach omnipotence. And so at this point, we're really talking about a guy with a level of power that's almost on par with God. But I know I didn't cover everything in this. There are small facets here and there with regards to how to defeat Kyle Rayner, especially the fact that he has proven vulnerable in the past to telepathy, telepathic attacks, and so on. So if you guys have suggestions down below, or if you guys have suggestions in general on how to kill a White Lantern, feel free to post a comment below and let me know, because I know there are a lot of you out there who are wildly more well-versed in the Green Lantern mythos than I am. Honestly, I've always found like the Jeff Johns Lantern mythos to be very, very daunting, but I've always found the White Lantern to be fascinating. So if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Corps. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.